When you meet someone rude, your natural instinct is usually to either fight back or shut down. They say something cutting, something sharp, and your body reacts before your brain has a chance to catch up. Your heart rate spikes, your face heats up, and you're torn between snapping back or retreating to avoid the conflict altogether. But here's the problem with both of those reactions. When you fight back, you've given that rude person exactly what they wanted, escalation. And when you retreat, you've given them something else, they wanted, control. Both of those roads lead to the same destination. Someone else deciding the tone of the conversation and you losing your power in the exchange. But I want you to imagine another road. One that doesn't look like retreating. One that doesn't look like firing back with anger. One that looks like calm, intentional, confident command. And here's the trick: rude people feed off chaos. They thrive when they can throw you off balance. But when you stand there, steady, clear, unshaken, you strip the oxygen out of their fire. That's the part most people miss. Rudeness isn't just words. It's bait. It's a test. And the moment you show you're not rattled by it, you shut it down instantly. See, I spent years in the courtroom where people tried everything to rattle me. Opposing counsel would raise their voice. They'd interrupt. They'd sneer, roll their eyes, laugh at points I was making, even insult me outright. Because the courtroom isn't just about facts, it's about presence. It's about control. And I had to learn very quickly that if I matched their rudeness, I lost credibility. If I shrank back, I lost authority. The only option left was composure. Not the passive kind, not the silent kind, the active kind, where your tone, your words, your body language send one clear message: you don't control me. You don't get to dictate my response. That's what shuts rude people down. Not shouting louder, not winning the insult battle, composure. So here's your first move, and it's deceptively powerful: silence. You don't always have to meet words with words. Most rude people expect you to fire back immediately. That's what they're counting on, your emotional reaction. But when you pause, when you take that beat of silence, you're doing three things at once. First, you're regaining control of yourself. You're making sure your response is deliberate, not emotional. Second, you're unsettling them because silence is not the response they rehearsed in their head. Third, you're shifting the attention. Suddenly, everyone around notices their words hanging in the air, and it's their rudeness, not your reaction, that's on display. That silence makes them sit in the weight of their own behavior. Now, I can already hear someone saying, "But Jefferson, silence feels weak. If I don't respond right away, won't they think they got to me?" No. Silence is not weakness when it's intentional. Silence is a strategy. Think of it like this: in a courtroom, when a witness says something outrageous, do you know what the most powerful thing I can do sometimes is? Nothing. I let it hang there. I let the jury feel the sting of it. Because the more I rush to defend, the more I dignify the attack. But when I wait calmly, the jury starts to see through it themselves. That's the same principle in life. You don't have to jump to defend yourself against every rude comment. Sometimes the most powerful defense is stillness, but silence isn't the only tool. Let's move to the second move. And this one is where you really take back control of the conversation: reframing. When someone throws rudeness at you, you don't always have to absorb it. You can redirect it. You can take that negative energy and flip it into something that exposes the behavior without lowering yourself to their level. Here's what I mean. Let's say someone interrupts you with a dismissive, "That's stupid." Instead of firing back, you calmly say, "Help me understand what you mean by that." Now think about what you just did. You didn't fight their insult with another insult. You didn't retreat. You turned it back on them, forcing them to explain themselves. And 9 times out of 10, they can't, because rudeness is rarely rooted in logic. It's rooted in insecurity, impatience, or a need for control. Here's another example. You're in a meeting and someone talks over you, a rude move, right? Instead of getting louder or giving up the floor, you calmly say, "I'll finish my point, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts." Simple, clear. You didn't match their rudeness, but you didn't shrink either. You reframed the moment, and in doing so, you asserted control without raising your voice. That's how you shut someone down, not by rudeness, but by outclass. Now, let's talk about something that makes a lot of people freeze up when it comes to shutting down rudeness. They think they have to choose between two extremes. Either they stay silent, swallow the disrespect, and walk away fuming on the inside, or they explode, snap back, and end up saying things they regret. But those are not your only options. There's a third path, and it's one that wins both in the courtroom and in everyday life. It's called controlled authority, not silence, not overreaction, controlled authority. When someone is rude, they're trying to yank the steering wheel of the conversation out of your hands. They're trying to set the tone, pull you into their energy, and make you play on their terms. And most people either give in or fight back on impulse. But controlled authority means you don't let them set the stage. You don't raise your voice just because they did. You don't match their sarcasm with sarcasm. Instead, you hold the reins of your own composure like a judge sitting on the bench. You decide the pace. You decide the tone. You decide what gets a response and what doesn't. That's power. Think about it in a courtroom. Lawyers know the person who loses control first loses credibility. The same is true in life. When someone throws rudeness at you, your immediate reaction will either fuel their fire or extinguish it. If you mirror their negativity, you've just stepped into the ring and agreed to fight on their terms. If you freeze, you've surrendered and let their words dominate. But if you keep your cool, if you use your voice like a scalpel instead of a hammer, suddenly the rude person is exposed. They look unhinged. They look emotional. They look like the problem. And you look like the adult in the room. Here's the key. Controlled authority doesn't mean being robotic or suppressing emotion. It means mastering the timing of your words. Silence used correctly can be more powerful than a paragraph. A pause, a tilt of the head, a calm, "Did you mean it that way?" Those are courtroom tricks you can use outside the courtroom. They don't just shut down rudeness. They flip the script. They force the rude person to see themselves, often for the first time, in the mirror of your composure. Let me give you a practical example. Someone snaps at you in a meeting. "Wow, you really dropped the ball on that project." The average response. Defend, explain, maybe even attack back. Controlled authority. You breathe, you don't rush, you look them in the eye and say calmly, "That's an interesting way to put it. Care to elaborate?" Do you see what just happened? The rudeness that was meant to make you defensive now puts them on the spot. The room turns toward them. They have to explain themselves. 9 times out of 10, their edge softens. Why? Because rudeness thrives in chaos. It dies in calm. And don't underestimate the power of your body language here. In the courtroom, juries don't just listen to what you say. They watch how you stand, how you breathe, how you react under fire. If your shoulders tighten, if your face scrunches, if your voice gets shaky, that communicates weakness. But if you sit back in your chair, steady your breathing, keep your voice clear and slow, you've just delivered the ultimate shutdown without raising the volume 1 decibel. That's controlled authority in action. The deeper point here is this: shutting down rudeness is less about what you say and more about who you are in that moment. It's about anchoring yourself so strongly in self-respect that their disrespect bounces off of you instead of penetrating you. You don't owe them your energy. You don't owe them your defensiveness. You don't owe them the satisfaction of seeing you rattled. What you do owe to yourself is the kind of response that keeps your dignity intact. That's the win. That's the mic drop, not out-shouting them, but outclassing them. And here's where the shift really happens. When you master controlled authority, rude people start realizing they can't get a rise out of you. And when they can't get a rise out of you, they lose their power. It's like in the courtroom when an attorney keeps throwing objections, but the judge doesn't budge. Eventually, they stop trying because their tricks don't work anymore. That's exactly what happens in life. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow, what you respond to, and what you calmly refuse to entertain. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're at work and someone says, "Well, if you actually did your job right the first time, we wouldn't be in this mess." Now, the easy thing is to snap back. "Excuse me, maybe if you pulled your own weight, we wouldn't be here either." That's fire meeting fire. And it feels good for about 3 seconds until HR calls both of you in. Instead, redirect the heat. You might respond with, "I hear you're frustrated. Let's figure out how to solve it." Do you see the move? You've taken the energy they threw at you, acknowledged it, but redirected it away from the attack and toward the solution. You didn't let their words dictate the fight. You chose the path forward. Here's the final piece of shutting down rude people instantly, and it might surprise you. Because it's not about outsmarting them. It's not about out-talking them. It's not even about putting them in their place with the perfect one-liner that makes everyone clap. No. The final piece is this: you walk away with your peace intact. Because when someone throws rudeness at you, what they're really doing is trying to hand you their chaos, their insecurity, their storm. And you have a choice. You can pick it up or you can leave it right there on the ground. See, in every courtroom, there comes a point when the opposing attorney tries to drag you off track. They'll ask a loaded question, hoping you'll lose your cool. They'll try to bait you into an argument you can't win. And the most powerful attorneys don't fall for it. They object. They shut it down. And then they stop giving it oxygen. They don't fight every jab. They don't chase every comment. They stay calm, measured, and above it. That's how you win. When someone is rude to you in life, they want your attention. They want your energy. They want you to spiral down into their level so they can feel a little less small. Don't give it to them. That's the last trick, the ultimate move. Not because you can't fight, not because you don't have the words, but because your peace is worth more than their drama. Silence isn't weakness. Walking away isn't defeat. It's strength. It's restraint. It's saying, you don't get to rent space in my head. Now, let me make something clear. I'm not telling you to let people walk all over you. I'm telling you to decide who is worth your words. Rudeness doesn't deserve a speech. Sometimes the sharpest comeback you'll ever give is no comeback at all. It's just calm, just composure, just dignity. Because here's the truth, rude people feed off your reaction. When you deny them that, they starve. And isn't that what shutting someone down really means? It's not about embarrassing them, it's about making their rudeness ineffective, making it powerless. When their words bounce off you, when you refuse to let it touch your self-worth, you've already won. You didn't just shut them down. You shut off their access to you. So next time someone tries to throw shade, remember this pause, respond with control, set your boundary, and if needed, walk away with your peace intact. That's the 4-move sequence. That's your courtroom strategy for everyday life. And you'll notice something when you do it. The rude ones either shrink back or they go looking for an easier target because you're not available for their nonsense anymore. And here's my ending statement, the one I want ringing in your ears after today: rude people only win if you let them take your peace. Don't hand it over. Don't trade your calm for their chaos. Keep your head high, your tone steady, and your dignity intact. That's not just shutting them down, that's shutting them out of your life. And in the end, that's the only verdict that matters. And let's be clear, redirecting isn't the same as being a pushover. This isn't about pretending rude behavior is okay. It's about being the one in control of where the conversation goes, because rude people expect you to fight on their battlefield. They want to bait you into sarcasm, into shouting, into rolling your eyes. When you refuse to play that game, when you redirect instead of react, you instantly shift the dynamic. You become the conductor of the conversation. You take the courtroom gavel back into your hand and say, "Order. We're going this way. Here's why this works so powerfully." Rude people often don't know what to do with calm confidence. They're geared up for a fight. They've built a whole monologue in their head of what they're going to say when you snap back. But when you don't snap back, when instead you calmly steer the conversation in a productive direction, it disarms them. It's like they showed up ready to play football and you suddenly handed them a chessboard. They can't play the same game anymore. And now you're in control. Let's drill deeper. Suppose you're at a family dinner and your relative says something snide like, "Well, some people in this family clearly don't care about tradition anymore." Instead of clapping back, try redirecting. You can say, "Tradition matters to you? I can see that. Why don't you tell me what's most important about it to you?" That does two things. It acknowledges their value system and it puts the burden back on them to explain instead of attack. You redirected their rude jab into an actual conversation. And that's where your power shows up. Now, some of you might be thinking, "Jefferson, that sounds too nice. What if they're just being a jerk and don't deserve my calm redirection?" And I hear you. Not every situation calls for calm dialogue. Some rude people don't want solutions. They just want to stir the pot. But that's where redirecting still protects you, because it's not just about fixing the problem. It's about showing yourself that you don't bend to their chaos. You don't allow someone else's bad behavior to pull you off your center. Redirection, even when it doesn't work on them, still works on you. It keeps you aligned with who you are. Let me paint this another way. Imagine someone hurls a basketball at you in anger. You can catch it and hurl it back. Now you're in a fight. Or you can catch it, spin, and toss it toward the hoop. That's redirection. You took the energy and turned it into something that serves you, not them. And over time, this becomes your default muscle. You don't flinch at rude comments anymore. You don't let your blood pressure skyrocket every time someone tries to be clever at your expense. You just redirect, redirect, redirect until it feels like second nature. And here's the truth. You can use redirection in everyday conversations, not just with the openly rude. Someone cuts you off mid-sentence. Instead of, "Wow, are you always this rude?" You say, "Hold on, let me finish this thought real quick, and then I want to hear yours." That's redirection. Someone says, "That's a stupid idea." Instead of firing back, you say, "Tell me what you do differently." That's redirection. Each time you've moved the spotlight, you've shifted the battlefield, you've chosen the next play instead of reacting to theirs. And I'll tell you, when you master this, rude people stop getting under your skin because you realize they don't hold the power. I do. Their words don't dictate your day. Their tone doesn't decide your mood. You've got the courtroom gavel and you decide which case is worth hearing. And if it's not worth it, you redirect. You take the air out of their performance and you walk away with your composure intact. That's real strength.